The courthouse doors burst open behind Lyra Mornhax. Cold air struck her face like a warning. She didn't flinch. Stone steps stretched beneath her boots, dusted with pale frost. Villagers gathered below, pretending not to stare. The bell above the courthouse swayed once, metal groaning in the wind. Lyra stood rigid at the top of the steps. Hood down. Silver-white hair, cut blunt at her jaw, lifting in the morning gust. Pale porcelain skin almost luminous against the gray sky. The vertical scar through her lower lip whitened as she pressed her mouth thin. She refused to look across the road. But she felt him. At the treeline. Selim Dravik. Still as carved obsidian against the dark pines. Weathered black leather long coat falling straight to his boots, brass buckles glinting faintly. Charcoal tunic beneath. A wolf head amulet resting unmoving at his throat. Storm gray eyes fixed on the courthouse. On her. He did not blink. Behind her, boots struck stone. Her ex-husband stepped out into the morning with a smile too sharp to be sincere. Well, he said lightly, loud enough for the villagers to hear. You always liked making a spectacle. A murmur rippled through the square. Lyra descended one step. The wind shifted. And with it, the forest went silent. No birds. No rustle of branches. No distant livestock noise from the valley below. Silence, complete and unnatural. Her ex's smile faltered. Just slightly. Across the road, Selim's posture changed, barely perceptible. A subtle straightening of broad shoulders. Thick dark brows lowering a fraction. The diagonal line of his jaw tightening beneath salt and pepper stubble. His storm gray eyes darkened. Amber flickered within them. Gold threatening. Her ex swallowed. He tried to step closer to her. He stopped instead. Lyra felt it then, the shift in air pressure, like something ancient had lifted its head. She did not look at Selim. But she knew. If her ex took one more step, the man at the treeline would cross the road. And Briar Hollow would never pretend again that it was ordinary. The silence held. Waiting. And so did he. The silence did not break all at once. It thinned. Like ice cracking beneath weight. A cough from somewhere near the well. The shuffle of boots on stone. A woman's whisper disguised as sympathy. Lyra descended another step. Then another. Her ex fell into place beside her as though they were still something united. Up close, his scent scraped at her senses, oversweet cologne failing to hide the metallic tang beneath. It wasn't blood. It was instability. You always did enjoy dramatics, he said pleasantly, projecting just enough for the villagers below to hear. Refusing mediation. Forcing a full hearing. A few heads nodded, not in agreement. In discomfort. Lyra kept her gaze forward. You filed the appeal. Because I thought you'd come to reason. He smiled again, teeth showing. Privately. The word slid over her skin wrong. A reminder of doors closed too tightly. Of conversations that had never truly been conversations. Her fingers brushed the edge of her bracer, grounding herself in the firm press of leather against wrist. Across the road, the forest remained unnaturally still. She felt him there. Unmoving. Watching. Her ex leaned closer, voice lowering. You think he's here for you? His eyes flicked toward the trilene and back. He's enjoying the spectacle more than anyone. Heat climbed into her throat, not embarrassment. Anger. I don't concern myself with what he enjoys, she said evenly. Don't you? He murmured. Her ex stepped down one stair ahead of her, turning to face her as though to offer a gentleman's hand. He did not offer it. He blocked her descent instead. You could withdraw, he said softly, smile fixed. We could settle this without the whole village. A shift in the air cut him off. Not sound. Not movement. Something more subtle. The pressure changed. Lyra felt it along her spine first, a tightening like the drawing of a bowstring. Across the road, Selim moved. Barely. A single step forward from the trilene. Boot meeting frost-dark earth. His shoulders squared, not aggressively. Simply present. The wolf head amulet at his throat rested against the charcoal linen of his tunic, unmoving despite the wind. Storm-gray eyes never left Lyra. The amber flecks within them brightened. Her ex faltered mid-sentence. Just a hitch in breath. He didn't look toward Selim this time. But his body registered it. His heel slid back 1 inch on the step. Enough. Lyra noticed. And something inside her stilled. She turned her head. For the first time since stepping outside the courthouse. She looked at Selim directly. The distance between them was no more than the width of the road. Yet it felt charged, like a boundary humming with contained force. He did not beckon. Did not nod. Did not smile. He simply held her gaze. Storm gray. Calm. Assessing. But not possessive. There was no claim in his posture. Only readiness. The wind tugged at her silver-white hair. She didn't move to smooth it back. The scar at her lip cooled in the open air as she drew a slow breath. Pine. Frost. Leather. And beneath it, wolf. Not wild. Not uncontrolled. Contained. Her ex's jaw tightened. You always did enjoy dramatics. Lyra's eyes did not leave Selim's. No, she said quietly. I wanted it finished. That landed. Her ex stepped back. Pretending it was casual. Pretending he meant to give her space. The villagers saw it. Whispers shifted in tone. Not pity. Curiosity. Lyra felt the power tilt, not violently, not dramatically. Subtly. For the first time since filing for divorce, she was not the one cornered on the courthouse steps. Her ex forced a laugh. See you at the next hearing, he said, voice too light. He turned and descended the remaining steps alone. Lyra stayed where she was. The road lay between them. A thin line of frost marking its center. Selim did not move. His gaze held hers, questionless, patient. Waiting. Not demanding. Not expecting gratitude. Just present. She could turn away now. Pretend she hadn't noticed. Pretend the tension wasn't threading between them like pulled wire. Instead, she took one step toward the road. Not across it. Just toward it. The smallest movement. But deliberate. A choice. His eyes darkened in response, not hunger. Recognition. He inclined his head slightly. Respect. Her breath caught, not from fear. From the realization that he would not cross unless she did first. And that frightened her in a way she hadn't anticipated. Because it meant the next shift in power would be hers. The wind picked up again, breaking the unnatural stillness. The forest exhaled. And in that breath, Lyra understood something new. He wasn't waiting for the court to decide. He was waiting for her. She stepped back from the road. Not retreating. Just not ready. Across from her, Selim's jaw eased. He turned slightly, not away from her, but enough to signal he would not press further. Restraint. Under pressure. The choice remained in her hands. Be careful walking home, he said at last. His voice carried across the road without rising. Low. Controlled. It wasn't a command. It was concern carefully stripped of possession. You think he'll do something reckless, she said. I think he already is, Selim replied. A pause. Something unspoken hovered between them. Will you stop him? She asked quietly. His eyes held hers. If he forces my hand. Simple words. But the weight behind them was not. Lyra swallowed. And if I ask you not to? The question slipped out before she could measure it. Across the road, something shifted in his expression. Not surprise. Something deeper. Vulnerability, perhaps, quickly masked. I would listen, he said. Not agreement. Not refusal. Truth. The tension tightened again. Because listening meant he would consider her will above instinct. And that was more dangerous than dominance. Lyra did not look back. Not because she wasn't tempted. Because she knew if she did, she would cross that frost-marked road. And she was not ready to choose what crossing meant. The walk to her cottage wound along the river bend, past low stone fences and bare-limbed hawthorn trees clawing at the pale sky. Frost clung stubbornly to shaded patches of grass. The air smelled of wet bark and chimney smoke. And beneath it, faint. Lingering. Wolf. Not close. Not pursuing. Just there. Her cottage stood at the edge of the village boundary where the farmland surrendered to forest. Modest stone. Slate roof. A single narrow window facing the trees. She unlocked the door without fumbling. Closed it behind her. Slid the iron bolt into place. Only then did she exhale. Silence wrapped around her. The interior smelled of dried lavender and oiled leather. A small hearth. A rough wooden table. Shelves lined with jars and folded cloth. Everything orderly. Everything controlled. Unlike her. Her hand went instinctively to the short sword at her hip. She unfastened the sheath and drew the blade halfway. The metal whispered against leather. Still sharp. Still balanced. Still hers. The memory of Selim's posture across the road surfaced unbidden. He had not reached for a weapon. He had not needed one. That unsettled her more than if he had. Lyra moved toward the window that faced the treeline. She did not part the curtain. She simply stood there, listening. Wind combing through pine needles. The distant rush of river current against stone. And something else. Not movement. Presence. Her skin prickled, not with prey instinct. Not hunted. Observed. She closed her eyes and let her senses widen the way they had long before marriage had dulled them. There. At the forest edge. Still. Watching. He had followed. No. Not followed. Positioned. Close enough to intervene. Far enough to respect the boundary she had set when she stepped back from the road. Her throat tightened unexpectedly. He could have walked her home. Could have shadowed her openly. Could have made a display of it. Instead, he waited where the trees began. A guardian who refused to cross the threshold without invitation. The realization did something dangerous inside her chest. It softened it. And softness had once nearly destroyed her. She turned away from the window abruptly and moved to the hearth, kneeling to stir the embers. Sparks jumped, catching new flame. The warmth spread slowly through the room. Her ex's words replayed in fragments. You think he's here for you? The cruelty hadn't been in the question. It had been in the doubt he tried to plant. Lyra pressed her palm briefly to the scar at her lip. She had spent years being told her instincts were dramatic. Exaggerated. Wrong. Yet today, her instincts had been precise. Selim had not looked at her like spectacle. He had looked at her like someone calculating risk. Risk to her. Not from her. That distinction mattered. Outside, a twig snapped. She moved to the door. Unbolted it. Opened it. Cold air rushed in, carrying pine and riverine. Him. Stronger now. She stepped onto the threshold. The forest loomed 50 paces away, shadows gathering beneath thick branches. And there, a dark silhouette between trunks. Broad-shouldered. Long coat falling straight. Storm gray eyes catching the last of daylight. He did not step forward. Did not hide. Just enough visible to be known. Lyra folded her arms loosely, not defensive. Contained. You're close, she called quietly. His voice carried back, low and steady. Close enough. To do what? A pause. To hear if you scream. No drama in it. No boast. Simple truth. The words sent heat through her spine, half anger, half something far more treacherous. I didn't ask for a sentry. No. He shifted slightly, boots crunching against frost. You stepped back, he continued. That was your boundary. Her breath hitched at the memory of that small movement on the courthouse road. You noticed, she said. I notice everything about you. The statement landed heavy between them. Not flirtation. Observation. Lyra's heartbeat thudded in her ears. That's dangerous, she said softly. For who? For me, she answered before she could stop herself. Silence followed. The kind that reveals more than speech. In the dimming light, she saw his jaw tighten, not with impatience. With restraint. I am not your ex, he said carefully. The comparison flickered through her like a struck match. She hadn't spoken it aloud, but he'd read it anyway. I know, she replied. And she did. Her ex had crowded her space to control it. Selim held distance like an offering. That difference felt enormous. You could leave, she said. Go back into the forest. I could. He didn't. The tension thickened, not with threat. With choice. She took another step forward. The frost crunched beneath her boots. His shoulders tightened, but he did not move to meet her. Subtle shift. The power edged toward her again. If I tell you to go, she said quietly, will you? His throat worked once before he answered. Yes. The word cost him something. She saw it in the slight flare of gold beneath the gray of his eyes. In the way his fingers curled against his palm as though resisting instinct. Not obedience. Consent. The realization was intoxicating and terrifying. Because now the responsibility was hers. I don't want you to go, she said. The confession slipped out softer than she intended. Silence swallowed the clearing. The river's rush seemed louder suddenly. He did not smile. Did not advance. But something in him eased. Then I'll stay, he replied. Her pulse hammered. Too close to vulnerability. Too close to dependence. You won't cross this yard, she added quickly. A test. A boundary. His answer came without hesitation. I won't. Trust flickered between them, fragile, newly formed. Behind her, the cottage door remained open. Behind him, the forest stretched deep and shadowed. She stood between both worlds. And for the first time since filing for divorce, she did not feel alone in that space. A distant sound cut through the moment. Footsteps on gravel. Not from the forest. From the road. Both of them stilled. Selim's head turned slightly, nostrils flaring. The air shifted. Lyra felt it too now, her ex's scent. Closer. Approaching her cottage. Not stumbling. Intentional. Selim's posture altered, barely. Weight shifting to the balls of his feet. Contained violence. Waiting for permission. Lyra's hand slid to the hilt of her short sword. The night held its breath. And this time, she would decide what happened next. The second hearing drew a larger crowd. Not because the matter was unusual. But because something had shifted during the first. Villages survived on patterns. And when patterns cracked, people gathered to watch the fault lines widen. When she stepped onto the path at dawn, Selim was already there, leaning against the outermost pine at the forest boundary, long coat dark against frost-silver bark. Closer than before. Not at the tree lean. At the edge of her land. Storm-gray eyes lifted as if he had sensed her heartbeat before her door even opened. Which, she suspected, he had. Her breath misted in the cold air between them. You're closer, she observed. Yes. No apology. No explanation. She studied him carefully this time. The salt and pepper stubble shadowing his jaw. The diagonal scar cutting through his right brow. His boots were damp with morning frost, he had been standing there a while. You're testing my boundary, she said quietly. His gaze did not waver. I'm adjusting to it. A subtle shift in power. Not defiance. Adaptation. She could tell him to step back. He would. The knowledge steadied and unsettled her in equal measure. Walk with me, she said at last. Not a command. An invitation. Something flickered beneath the gray of his eyes, amber catching faint morning light. He fell into step beside her. Not touching. Not crowding. But near enough that she could feel his heat through layers of fabric. The village square approached slowly, frost crunching under synchronized strides. She was acutely aware of him, the rhythm of his breathing, deep and controlled. The faint scent of pine clinging to his coat. Something warmer beneath it. Wolf. Contained. Not hunting. Watching. As they entered the square, whispers ignited again. This time, they did not part completely. They stared. At her. At him. At the distance, measured and deliberate, between them. Her ex stood at the courthouse steps already. Charming smile in place. But the moment he caught sight of Selim walking at Lyra's side, the scent shifted. Sharp. Acrid. Like metal heated too fast. Her ex's jaw tightened only slightly before he smoothed it into a grin for the onlookers. You've brought protection this time, he called lightly. Selim did not respond. He did not look at him. His gaze remained forward, posture relaxed, but the amber flecks in his storm gray eyes glinted faintly. Lyra noticed. Heat curled low in her abdomen. Not fear. Something more dangerous. He waits where he chooses, she said evenly. A small truth. But a powerful one. Her ex's nostrils flared. He stepped closer. Too close. Selim shifted. Barely. But the air pressure changed. Lyra felt the warmth of Selim's body at her side, not touching, but near enough that her skin recognized it. Recognized him. Her ice-blue eyes lifted to his. Brief contact. Storm gray met frost. Amber flickered faintly within the gray, just a pulse. A warning. But not to her. Her breath caught. Heat slid through her chest and down her spine. Not possession. Awareness. He was not reacting blindly. He was watching her. Waiting for her cue. Her ex noticed the eye contact. His sense spiked, sharper now. Bitter. Threatened. You think this is strength? He said softly to Lyra, voice pitched for her alone. Hiding behind something bigger? The old wound opened reflexively. But she did not shrink. Because at her side, the larger presence did not loom. It waited. She stepped half an inch closer to Selim. Choice. The smallest movement. But unmistakable. The crowd inhaled. Her ex saw it. His mask slipped, not entirely, but enough. A flash of something raw and unsteady beneath charm. Selim's jaw tightened. The gold in his eyes deepened, but he did not move forward. Restraint. Under pressure. Lyra felt it like a physical force, his instinct to intervene pressing against the thin leash of her autonomy. She placed her hand lightly against her own forearm. Not on him. But close enough that her knuckles brushed the sleeve of his coat. Contact. Accidental to any observer. Intentional to both of them. The fabric was cold from morning air. Beneath it, heat. His breath changed. Not louder. Slower. Deliberate. He was anchoring himself. Her ex's gaze dropped to where her knuckles touched dark wool. The scent sharpened further, unstable, almost frantic. Walk inside with me, he said, smile brittle now. Alone. The word scraped. Before she could respond, Selim's hand lifted, not touching her, not blocking. Hovering inches from the small of her back. Not possessive. Protective. The proximity burned. He would not touch her without permission. But he was close enough that if she leaned back even slightly, she would feel him fully. The awareness sent heat flooding through her again. I won't be alone with you, she told her ex clear. Public. A crack in the old dynamic. Something inside her ex snapped quietly. The scent turned volatile. Selim's weight redistributed, barely, for speed. Careful, Selim murmured. Not to her ex. To her. The word brushed her ear like low thunder. She looked up at him again. Storm gray eyes met ice blue. This time, neither looked away immediately. In his gaze, she saw something new. Not just protection. Not just calculation. Want. Controlled. Buried. But there. Her throat tightened. She realized, suddenly, that if she asked him to step closer, he would. If she asked him to leave, he would. The power sat squarely in her hands. And that terrified her more than her ex's instability ever had. Because power required trust. And trust required vulnerability. The courthouse doors creaked open. The clerk called their names. Stay, she said quietly. His eyes darkened, not triumph. Relief. I will. She stepped away first. Breaking the charged proximity. Crossing toward the courthouse doors. The hearing lasted 90 minutes. She felt his absence like a missing layer of armor. When she emerged, blinking into the cold afternoon, he was exactly where she had left him. At the base of the steps. Waiting. Their eyes met again as she descended. Storm gray. Ice blue. Brief. Charged. He scanned her quickly, assessing for harm, the way he always did. The way no one had ever done for her without trying to control her in the same breath. She gave the smallest shake of her head. I'm fine. His shoulders eased a fraction. The villagers did not disperse. An older woman near the well stepped forward first. Mara, her hands always smelling faintly of herbs and river clay. Lyra, she said carefully, not unkindly. You should be cautious. Lyra's spine stiffened. I am. Mara's eyes flicked toward Selim and then away again, as if looking too long might invite something ancient to notice. Dravic blood isn't clean, she whispered. The word settled coldly into the air. Dravic. Lyra had heard it before in fragments, half myth, half warning told to children who wandered too far into the pines. They say the Dravic line answered to no council, a farmer added, hat in hand. Not even the high alphas beyond the northern ridge. Pack law. The phrase hovered unspoken but understood. Lyra's gaze drifted to Selim at last. He stood still, hands relaxed at his sides, long coat unmoving despite the rising wind. Ancient youth, the only way to describe him. A man in his late 30s by appearance, broad-shouldered, scar cutting through his right brow, salt and pepper stubble shadowing his jaw. But his eyes carried centuries of stillness. And within them now, amber flickered. Not anger. Memory. He was not embarrassed by the whispers. He was measuring them. Lyra stepped away from the villagers. Not toward him, but away from them. Subtle. Clear. A power shift so slight it might have been missed. But Selim noticed. His chin lifted the smallest degree. Mara touched Lyra's arm. If he is what they say, why hasn't he claimed leadership? Power like that doesn't wait without reason. Lyra's pulse ticked faster. She hadn't asked him that. Not yet. Her gaze locked with his across the widening hush. He knew what they were asking. She crossed the square slowly, closing the distance not out of defiance, but curiosity. The villagers held their breath. As she neared him, she became aware of everything again. The scent of pine clinging to his coat. The faint metallic note beneath it, old bowels, perhaps. The steady cadence of his breathing. He did not move to meet her. He let her come. Choice. She stopped an arm's length away. Close enough to feel his warmth against the cool air. Dravik, she said quietly. Not accusation. Inquiry. His gaze softened, barely. Yes. Is it true? About leadership? His jaw flexed once, as if deciding how much truth to offer in a square that had never earned it. Pack law recognizes blood, he said evenly. Blood recognizes strength. And you have both, she pressed softly. His eyes held hers. Yes. The simplicity of it sent a shiver through her. Not arrogance. Fact. Then why haven't you claimed it? The wind lifted a strand of her silver-white hair across her cheek. He resisted the instinct to brush it back. She saw the restraint. Felt it. I have no interest in ruling those who do not choose me, he said quietly. The words were not for the crowd. They were for her. Something inside her chest tightened unexpectedly. You could take it, she said. Yes. And you don't. No. His amber flecks flared faintly, control fire behind winter gray. Desire braided with danger in the space between them. Because if he did not want a pack, if he did not want dominance. What did he want? Her ex's scent cut sharply through the air again from somewhere behind the crowd. Closer than it should have been. Watching. Calculating. She felt the instability building like a pressure system. She stepped half an inch nearer to Selim. Not enough to touch. Enough to share heat. Is that restraint, she asked softly, or avoidance? A dangerous question. His breath shifted. Lower. Slower. He leaned in, not enough for the villagers to gasp. Just enough that she felt the warmth of it near her temple. Neither, he murmured. Her pulse thudded. Then what? His voice dropped further, barely above the wind. Choice. The word settled between them like a spark. He could claim leadership. He could claim dominance. He could claim. But he didn't. Because he refused to take what wasn't freely given. The realization unraveled something tight inside her. Behind them, a murmur of disapproval rose. Fear dressed as morality. Mara's voice carried again. Power that waits is still power. Yes, Selim agreed calmly. No threat. Just truth. Lyra felt it then, how precarious this balance was. The village feared him. Her ex resented him. And she was beginning to trust him. That was the most dangerous shift of all. The first scream came just after moonrise. Not human. Animal. High. Abrupt. Lyra was already awake. Sleep had grown thin since the second hearing. Every creak of timber, every shift of wind against slate pulled her half-conscious and listening. She was on her feet before the echo fully faded. Boots. Cloak. Short sword strapped tight at her hip. No hesitation. The second cry never came. That was worse. When she stepped outside, the air tasted wrong. Iron. Fear. And something else, not wolf. Not entirely. Her gaze flicked automatically toward the forest boundary. No silhouette waited there tonight. The absence struck harder than presence. She moved fast across frost silver grass toward the lower fields where the livestock pens sat near the river bend. By the time she reached the first fence, the scent hit her fully. Blood. Too much. Too exposed. 2 sheep lay inside the enclosure. Not dragged. Not consumed. Torn. But not in the efficient pattern of a winter hunt. The flesh had been opened without purpose. Ribs split. Throats crushed, but not cleanly. Anger. That was what it looked like. Not hunger. Lyra crouched, fingers hovering just above the wounds without touching. Think. Normal wolves killed to feed. Rogue wolves killed to prove. This felt like neither. A branch snapped behind her. She was on her feet in one fluid motion, sword half drawn. I know that stance. The voice was low. Controlled. Close. She didn't startle, but her pulse did spike. Selim stepped from the darkness beyond the fence, long coat catching faint moonlight. The silver wolf head amulet rested against his chest, reflecting pale light like a watching eye. He was already here. Of course he was. Storm gray eyes swept the field once before settling on her. You shouldn't be alone after dark, he said. No accusation. No condescension. Concern sharpened to a quiet edge. Lyra sheathed her blade slowly. Neither should you, she replied. The words carried more than defiance. They carried contradiction. He could handle the dark. She knew that. But she also knew power attracted challenge. And tonight smelled like challenge. His gaze held hers for a beat longer than necessary. Amber flickered faintly within the gray, not threat. Heat. Moonlight silvered the scar through his right brow, casting his face into sharp relief. His expression was steady, but his nostrils flared once, catching her scent. Adrenaline. Determination. And beneath it, the subtle shift in her that only he seemed to notice lately. Trust. He stepped closer to the fence but did not cross it. Boundary. Always. You tracked it? He asked quietly. Yes. Alone. Unspoken. His jaw tightened. They moved in unconscious coordination along the fence line, not touching, but aligned. Circling the same evidence. Reaching the same conclusion. It didn't come to feed, she murmured. No. His voice was closer now. Heat radiated from him through the cold air. Pine and smoke and something deeper wrapped around her senses. This wasn't a wolf, she said. It was, he answered calmly. But not one hunting. Correct. The word vibrated low in his chest. Her pulse quickened, not from fear. From the layered meaning beneath it. A wolf choosing destruction instead of sustenance. A predator choosing spectacle instead of survival. A message. For you? She asked quietly. For the village, he corrected. A subtle distinction. But not complete. She searched his face. You think this is about the hearing? I think someone wants instability, he said carefully. Her ex's scent flickered in her memory, sharp, unbalanced, coiled tight after the square confrontation. You think he'd escalate this far? Selim didn't answer immediately. Calculation, not uncertainty. I think men losing control become unpredictable, he said at last. I don't want you blamed, she said quietly. That was the first time she had said something for him instead of about him. His eyes shifted, something softening beneath steel. I don't require their approval. I know. But She faltered. Vulnerability edged in where certainty had been. He stepped closer without thinking this time. Just one pace. Now only a breath separated them. Heat collided with cold night air. She felt it immediately, the shift in her body responding to his nearness. Not flinching. Leaning. You what? He asked softly. Her voice lowered. I don't want you forced into something you've chosen not to take. Leadership. Dominance. Claim. His breath brushed faintly across her temple. You think I'm holding back for them? He murmured. She met his gaze fully. Aren't you? The question landed deep. For a moment, the wolf inside him stirred visibly, the gold brightening, shoulders tightening, something ancient pressing against restraint. Not to dominate her. To answer honestly. I am holding back, he said slowly. Her pulse thundered. Why? Silence stretched. The river rushed louder in the distance. He could have said power. He could have said politics. Instead, his voice dropped almost to a whisper. Because if I step forward fully, there is no half measure. The confession slid between them like a blade wrapped in velvet. She understood immediately. Leadership wouldn't be partial. Protection wouldn't be partial. Neither would. Her breath stuttered. And you don't want that? She asked. His jaw flexed. I don't want to take it. The distinction struck her like heat. Take. Not receive. Not choose. Take. He was not restraining himself for the village. He was restraining himself for her. Because she was the only variable he hadn't accounted for. A distant howl split the night. Not from his throat. Not from nearby. Answering. Her spine went rigid. Selim's head tilted slightly, listening. His expression hardened, not anger. Recognition. They're watching, he said quietly. Your pack? I don't have one. The denial was immediate. But the howl came again. Closer. Testing. Then who? His gaze returned to her, storm gray deepening toward midnight. Someone who wants me to choose. Choose leadership. Choose dominance. Choose violence. Or choose her. The contradiction ignited fully now. Danger escalating outside them. Desire escalating between them. You shouldn't be alone after dark, he repeated, softer this time. And you shouldn't be forced to stand alone, she shot back. The words hung there, closer to confession than either had intended. He took another half-step forward before catching himself. Now only inches separated them. She could feel the heat of his chest through layers of fabric. Could hear the slow, deliberate control in his breathing. He wanted to touch her. She saw it. He did not. Restraint under pressure. From the darkness beyond the field, a shadow moved between trees. Not wind. Not prey. Watching. Waiting. Selim's attention snapped outward instantly, body angling subtly to shield her without making it obvious. She noticed. Heat flared again, protectiveness meeting protectiveness. "We're not done," she murmured. "No," he agreed. Another howl tore through the night, closer now. Challenge. The choice was tightening. Lead. Fight. Claim. Or continue to wait. Selim's hand hovered briefly near her elbow. Not touching. Permission hanging in the air. Lyra's breath trembled once. If she leaned into that hand, if she allowed him to step forward fully, nothing between them would remain half-measured again. The shadow in the trees shifted closer. And for the first time, she wasn't sure whether the greater danger stood in the forest. Or in the space between them, waiting to be chosen. The shadow stepped into moonlight. Not her ex. Not a wolf from some distant pack. A young man, barely 20, wild-eyed, clothes torn, the stink of forced shifts still clinging to his skin. One of the farmhands from the eastern ridge, she realized. A boy who had never asked to be what he was. Selim went very still beside her. Not from fear. From the particular stillness of someone deciding in real time how much force the moment actually required. The boy's eyes were all gold, no gray, no reasoning behind them yet. Rabid with new change. Dangerous the way a fire is dangerous before it understands that it burns. Dravik, the boy choked, and the name sounded like something he'd been told to say. They said if I called you out. Who told you? Selim's voice was low. Absolute. The boy flinched at the sound of it, the way all young animals flinch at something that has earned its authority over centuries. The man from the village, the boy whispered. The one who smells like the courthouse. A muscle jumped in Selim's jaw. Her ex. Of course. Lyra exhaled through her nose, slowly, the pieces snapping into place. The livestock. The escalating pressure. The planted whispers through the village. Her ex had not been losing control. He had been engineering it. Trying to force Selim's hand. Trying to make Selim the threat the village already suspected him of being. He used you, Selim told the boy, voice still low, but something in the timbre of it had shifted. Not cold. Older. Patient in the way of things that have witnessed this before. You owe him nothing. Go home. The boy blinked. Gold flickered back toward brown. Human, surfacing like a swimmer coming up for air. He turned and ran. The darkness swallowed him. And then there was only the field, the frost, the distant rush of river, and the two of them standing close enough to share heat. Lyra was aware of her own heartbeat. The way her pulse had steadied rather than spiked. The way she had not reached for her sword. The way she had not needed to. He wanted you to respond, she said quietly. Yes. He wanted the village to see you respond. Yes. She looked at him. At the clean, unhurried way he stood now, as though the tension had simply moved through him and been released without spectacle. The wolf head amulet caught moonlight. The scar above his brow. The steadiness of him. Why didn't you? She asked. He turned to look at her. Not the field, not the darkness, not the place where the boy had vanished. Her. Because you were here, he said. The words were not complicated. He did not dress them in anything. No metaphor. No layered meaning. Simply, because you were here. Because I made a different choice when you were standing beside me. The cold air moved through the space between them. She felt it on her face, on the back of her hands, on the scar at her lip. She should say something careful. Something measured. Something that kept the distance at a useful width. She said, I don't know what this is. I know. I'm not sure I want to know yet. I know that too. That doesn't bother you? He was quiet for a moment. Not performing thought. Actually thinking. I have waited longer for simpler things, he said finally. It wasn't a declaration. It was something more difficult than a declaration. It was patience spoken plainly by someone who had no interest in performing it. Lyra's chest ached with a specific kind of feeling she did not have a name for. Not love, not yet. Not want, though that was there, beneath the surface, warm and inconvenient. Something more like recognition. The specific unsettling sensation of being seen not as you present yourself, but as you actually are. She turned to face the treeline. The village would be stirring soon. The livestock deaths would require explanation. Her ex would regroup and find another angle. The hearing was not over. None of this was over. But standing here, in the frostbitten dark, with this man at her side, this infuriating, contained, quietly devastating man who had waited at the treeline instead of crossing it. She felt something she hadn't felt in years. Steadied. Not saved. Not protected. Not sheltered from the storm. Just steadied. The way the ground steadies you when you've forgotten it's still there. Come inside, she said. The words surprised even her. She watched the stillness move through him. The almost imperceptible shift in his breathing. The amber flecks in his gray eyes catching the faint light. He did not move immediately. Lyra. I know what I'm saying, she interrupted quietly. I'm not asking you to stay. I'm asking you to come in from the cold and sit at a table and drink something warm. That's all I'm asking. And then... All right, he said. 2 words. Nothing more. But she felt the weight of the choice he had just made. The threshold he had just agreed to cross. Not the doorway of her cottage. The one between them. She turned toward the house. He fell into step beside her, not behind, not ahead, but beside, that measured, deliberate positioning she had come to know as its own kind of language. At the door, she paused with her hand on the latch. She didn't look at him. But she was aware of every inch of the distance that remained. For what it's worth, she said quietly, almost to the door, I noticed you too. She stepped inside. He followed. The frost crackled softly beneath the last of his footsteps. The door swung shut behind them. And the square, the village, the whispers, the hearing still unfinished, the X still circling, the pack dynamics still unresolved, all of it remained outside, where it belonged. For now. Just warmth. Just the sound of embers settling. Just two people choosing, slowly, cautiously, with full knowledge of the cost, to be in the same room. That was all. That was enough. For now.